The lantern hissed low on the table, shadows stretching long across the walls of the ranch house. Samuel Boone sat with his elbows on the wood, a half-empty bottle by his side, but it wasn't the drink that held him still. It was the sack. A burlap thing, tied at the top, stained dark in patches that hadn't dried even though the ride from town was half a day gone. He had set it down hours ago, swearing he wouldn't touch it again. But his eyes kept going back. Outside, the wind carried dust against the windows, whispering like voices too tired to speak loud. The ranch was quiet otherwise. Too quiet. No cattle lowing, no horses stomping. Just silence broken by the creak of an old timber beam now and then. He told himself he didn't care what was inside, that the sheriff's words weren't his burden to carry. But the truth weighed heavier than the sack itself. It was near midnight when the knock came. Not sharp, not the kind that demanded, but soft, hesitant, like someone praying not to be answered. Samuel pushed his chair back slow, the floor groaning beneath his boots. He opened the door, shotgun hanging loose at his side, and found her there. A girl, hair tangled with sweat and dust, dress torn at the shoulder, barefoot, shivering though the air was warm. Her eyes never left the ground. Her hands were pulled close to her chest, shaking. When she finally spoke, the words came out like something she'd held in too long. "Don't look at me." Samuel's jaw tightened. He knew that tone. It was the sound of shame beaten into someone by another man's cruelty. He wanted to ask her name, where she came from, what happened. But she pressed on, her voice breaking in pieces. "Please, just don't look at me." He stepped aside. She moved past him, light as a shadow, and sank into the corner near the fire like she wanted the flames to burn her away. He set the shotgun against the wall, studied her only for a moment before turning back to the table. That damned sack still sat there, daring him to untie it. Hours dragged. He poured her water, set bread near her without a word. She didn't touch it at first, only stared at the fire, clutching herself tighter, rocking in silence. Samuel sat across the room, the bottle gone by then, his eyes heavy but awake. When he finally spoke, it was quiet. "I ain't looking. You don't want me to, I won't." For the first time, her eyes flicked toward him. Not trusting, not yet, but searching. The dawn came gray, clouds hanging low over the desert. Samuel stepped out to the porch, lit his pipe, and stared down the dirt trail that wound between the rocks. That trail was trouble, always had been. Every debt, every feud, every man riding fast out of town seemed to find its way past his land. And now, with the girl inside and that sack sitting heavy in his house, he knew it was only a matter of time. By mid-morning, the dogs growled low. Not barking, not yet, just a warning. Samuel walked back inside, picked up the sack, and loosened the rope tie with hands that felt like stone. The smell hit him first. Iron, thick and bitter. Inside was a man's coat, blood stiff on the collar, and beneath it, a revolver with one chamber empty. He lifted it slow, the weight familiar, but the sight of the initials etched on the handle made his breath catch. J.G. James Greer. The man who owned half the land south of the river. The man who believed money made him untouchable. The man Samuel had sworn once he'd never cross again. Behind him, the girl's voice cracked the silence. It was him. He said I was his. Said he'd kill me if I ran. But I couldn't stay. I took it. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to make him stop. Samuel turned. She was standing now, trembling, her hands still hiding her face. I hit him. I don't know if he's dead. I didn't look back. Just grabbed the gun, the sack, and ran. The room felt smaller with every word. Samuel set the revolver down slow, the initials staring back at him like an accusation. He had fought men like Greer before. Men who thought women were things to own, not people to protect. Men who smiled wide while breaking bones. And now, Greer's blood was in a sack on his table, and the girl who carried it sat in his house begging not to be seen. By noon, the rider came. Dust rose behind the horse like smoke from a fire, cutting across the horizon. Samuel saw him from the porch and didn't move. Just rested his hand near the shotgun leaning against the wall. The rider slowed, pulling up hard, a big man with a scar across his cheek and eyes cold as river stone. "Morning," the man drawled. Samuel didn't answer. "Looking for someone. Girl. Young. Dark hair. Might be wearing rags. She ran from her place last night." His eyes narrowed. "She belongs to Mr. Greer." Samuel spit in the dirt. Calm. "You lose your mind? Ain't seen nobody." The man smirked, leaning on his saddle horn. "You sure about that, Boone? Word is, she came this way. And Mr. Greer don't like being made a fool." Samuel's stare didn't break. "A girl runs barefoot through cactus and rock, bleeding and half dead. She don't belong to nobody. Not Greer. Not you. Not anyone." The rider's smile dropped. His hand brushed the butt of his revolver, slow, a threat more than a draw. "Best think on who you're crossing. Greer's got the law in his pocket. If she's in there, you're hiding a thief. And thieves hang." Samuel's voice was steady, even. "Then tell him to bring a rope himself." The man studied him long, then jerked the reins, turning his horse hard. "This ain't over." Dust swallowed him as he rode off, fast and angry. Samuel stood there, pipe smoke curling, until the trail was empty again. He turned back inside. The girl was watching from the shadows, eyes wide, tears streaked down her cheeks. For the first time, she lowered her hands, letting him see the bruises along her jaw, the cut above her lip, the fear carved deep in her skin. "Don't look," she whispered again, but softer this time, like she didn't believe it herself. Samuel's chest tightened. He didn't look away. "Not this time. Ain't nothing here to shame you," he said. "What he did, that's on him, not you." Days bled into one another. She stayed quiet, moving like every step might break her. Samuel didn't press. He gave her work instead, mending fence, carrying water, brushing down horses. Little things to remind her she wasn't broken. Sometimes, in the quiet evenings, she'd sit on the porch with him, watching the horizon. She never said much, but her hands shook less with each passing day. But trouble don't fade just because you want it to. One evening, just before sundown, 3 riders came hard down the trail. Dogs barked, the ground shook with hooves. Samuel saw them before they hit the yard. Greer himself front and center, dressed too fine for the dirt, flanked by 2 hired guns mean enough to chew glass. Greer dismounted slow, removing his gloves like he was stepping into church. "Boone," he called, smooth as oil. "Heard you've been keeping something that belongs to me." Samuel stepped off the porch, rifle in hand but not raised. "Ain't nothing in this house belongs to you." Greer's smile twisted. "Paper says otherwise. Signed, sealed, legal. She's my wife now. You're hiding her, that's theft." Samuel's boots crunched on the dirt. "Paper don't make a man. And beating a girl half to death don't make you a husband. It makes you a coward." The guns moved first. One drew fast, but Samuel was faster. The rifle cracked once, echoing across the land, and the man hit the ground hard. The second lunged, blade flashing, but Samuel swung the stock clean across his jaw, dropping him cold. Greer froze, face pale, fury burning in his eyes but fear holding him still. Samuel stepped close, voice low and sharp. "You set foot here again, I'll bury you myself. Right where you stand." Greer's jaw clenched. He backed toward his horse, climbed on stiff, and rode off without another word. Silence settled heavy. From the doorway, the girl stepped out, no longer hiding her face. Her eyes met Samuel's, steady for the first time. Not healed, not yet, but alive. Free. Weeks passed. Quiet returned. She smiled sometimes now, not often, but real. Then one morning, Samuel found her sitting on the edge of the cot, hands pressed to her stomach, eyes wet but not from fear. He knew before she spoke. Greer's shadow wasn't gone after all. "What do I do?" she asked, voice breaking. Samuel sat beside her, calloused hands folded. He stared at the dust motes in the sunlight, then answered slow. "You let it live. Even if it's his, even then. That child don't carry his sin. Only yours. Only what you give it." Her tears fell quiet, but she leaned into him, and for the first time she let herself be held. The days ahead weren't easy. Folks whispered when she showed her face in town. Some spat, some turned away. But Samuel stayed beside her, steady as stone. Bought supplies, walked her through the market, let the world see she wasn't alone. Because in a world where men take and break and call it law, someone had to stand, even when it hurt. And now I'll ask you, same as Samuel might have asked himself, could you do the same? Could you love what others call shame? Could you raise the child of the man who hurt her? Could you carry that weight and call it yours? Because being a man ain't just about the fights you win. It's about what you choose to protect, what you choose to keep, even when the world says to throw it away. If this story reached you, don't let it end quiet. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tap that subscribe, hit like, leave your mark, because stories like these deserve to be remembered.